Okay, there we go. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending the June 17th, 2026 public hearing on the proposed system of rates and charges. This hearing is, as you just heard, being audio recorded. We are here because we value community feedback and engagement in shaping the future of our district. My name is TJ Johnson. I am the chair of the board of Conservation District. And with us tonight, Doug Rushton and Marianne Tompkins, our other board members. Dave Ayal and Jennifer Colvin aren't able to be here this evening. A little bit about the Thurston Conservation District. We're a non-regulatory subdivision of state government that was established in 1947 to voluntarily assist landowners and operators with the conservation and management of natural resources. We're a community-driven organization that works one-on-one with Thurston County residents to provide financial and technical land management assistance, implementation of conservation projects for both urban and rural land managers, conservation farm planning, watershed scale habitat restoration, soil testing services, a small farm equipment rental program, adult and youth workshops, education and community festivals, and symposiums, volunteer and internship opportunities, salmon recovery projects, classroom lessons, and watershed education programs. So clearly, we do a lot in this community. We're here tonight to talk about rates and charges and to receive feedback from our community on the renewal of our base funding mechanism, which is called rates and charges. Since 1993, our district has received funding through a $5 per parcel and 10-cent per acre assessment collected via property taxes annually. This funding has supported all of our programs and allowed us to bring in more state and federal money so that the local money is a very small percentage of what we actually have in our annual budget here. The proposed system of rates and charges includes a collection of up to the new statutory maximum amount of $25 per parcel and 10 cents per acre based on land use types for 10 years. So in the past, we were capped at $5 per acre. The legislature changed that a couple of years ago and said you can go to $25 a parcel. Sorry. And so that's what we're proposing this time. And also, going forward, this would be indexed to inflation, which it hasn't been in the past. This renewal of funding is proposed to support the same core functions of the district, all that stuff I just talked about, while also allowing us to address some other priorities that we identified in our strategic plan, including devoting $1 million a year to saving our rapidly disappearing farmland. With that, I'm going to introduce Sarah Moorhead, our executive director. She's going to walk through kind of how we determined what we're proposing here through our rates and charges study. And so take it away, Sarah.
Thanks, TJ. Good evening. Welcome again. My name is Sarah Moorhead. I'm the executive director, and I'm going to share a little bit about our organization, our community needs, our strategic vision for how to meet them, and rates and charges, and how that's the key to getting us there. So as TJ mentioned already, TCD is an independently and locally governed government organization. Our mission is to protect and enhance the farms, forests, and natural landscapes of Thurston County. Thurston County residents, as Thurston County residents, we envision a future where farms and forests and waters are protected. Climate resilience is built into our daily lives, and everyone has access to land and food, and conservation is a shared community value led by strong local leadership. By 2045, we want Thurston County to be a home of thriving farms, forests, and waterways. We want communities and partners to collaborate across boundaries to address these climate change issues, to protect those working lands, and to ensure that our future generations inherit a resilient and healthy landscape. Together, we can create those healthy lands, those thriving communities, and this sustainable future for all of us. So for over 75 years, our local team has connected people to free and low-cost services that help them practice conservation where they are. Whether it's on a farm or in a neighborhood, Thurston CD is an accessible hub of natural resource and agricultural expertise for people in our county. And our proposed system of rates and charges is the linchpin for Thurston CD to deliver conservation services at a county-wide scale. Rates and charges for Thurston CD benefits everyone, regardless of your land ownership or direct involvement in our conservation projects. So why are rates and charges, or what are rates and charges? They are county approved fees that residents pay to cover the cost of public services in our community. For example, county residents pay stormwater utility fees that are based on a county approved system of rates and charges to cover the cost of maintaining and operating the county stormwater runoff infrastructure and requirements. At TCD, those services look a lot more like restoring watershed health, improving our region's soil quality, sequestering carbon, reducing our region's risk to catastrophic wildfire and flooding, increasing our production of local food, aiding the recovery of endangered species, and training the next generation of land stewards. So why are these rates so important and maybe the most important of our funding mechanisms? It's because conservation districts are a public service and we're not a private for-profit entity. And we do not perform fee-for-service work to our community. As a mission-driven public entity, our budgets are tied to public funding and project-specific grants, and we can't pursue any kind of commercial activities that aren't directly related to our mission to fund these community programs. Grant criteria can be really rigid or disconnected from community priorities, making it really difficult to tailor grant-funded services to local needs. Grant funding is also really a volatile revenue source that fluctuates year to year with unpredictable state and federal budgets. And the needs for constant application, while community programs and services actually need consistent and predictable capacity. Rates and charges allow for local control of how those funds are invested in our community and lay the foundation to bring in state and federal dollars where those priorities align. Currently, our rates and charges makes up less than 6% of our nearly $10 million annual budget, meaning that for every $1 of local funding invested through rates and charges, TCD leverages that to bring roughly $17 back into Thurston County for on-the-ground conservation activities, which is a pretty good return on investment. So what have we accomplished with our rates thus far? TCD has had rates and charges for over a decade and an assessment for even longer. And with that, we've built a voluntary incentive-based delivery system that works across private lands, farms, forests, shoreline, schools, neighborhoods, and regional restoration partnerships, among others. We've evolved as well throughout this time period from primarily a project-by-project conservation service provider into a countywide conservation hub. We not only continue to show direct service to those residents and landowners that we work with on those projects, but we've also made major advances in things like community wildfire preparedness, again, access to farmland through our Farm Link program, major shoreline restoration, salmon recovery, youth education, community engagement, and strategically planning for the next generation and generations thereon of conservation work in this community. This matters because over 79% of Thurston County is privately owned, and the county's population has grown to over 300,000, which makes voluntary conservation on private and community lands really essential to achieving these public natural resource goals. In the last decade, we've strengthened the bridge between conservation and agricultural viability. Large-scale, multi-mile salmon recovery projects, water quality and floodplain function have become a flagship body of our work. Youth and community education has grown into a multi-generational conservation strategy that's transforming stewardship in our community. We've expanded habitat restoration beyond those riparian zones to projects into prairies, upland forests, backyard pollinator gardens, and critical endangered species habitat. Climate resilience has matured into really practical place-based services that protect public health and our local economy. And importantly, we've built a network of community partners with organizations and residents working together to transform this landscape. So what are the new strategies that are on our horizon? TCD has recently developed a new, bigger, and forward-thinking strategic plan to address these big, bold needs in our community now and into the future. These priorities include protecting and restoring natural resources, stewardship at a landscape scale, restoring balance where it's been lost, and protecting natural resources that shape our region's identity are of critical importance to our future. Through long-term land use policies, protection of habitat, forests, and farmlands, and advancing watershed health and agricultural viability, our lands and communities will continue to thrive. We want to build climate resiliency and disaster preparedness. Together, we can equip our community not just withstand climate impacts, but to emerge stronger, more adaptable, and more unified through the integration of climate smart farming and conservation practices, promotion of green infrastructure and stormwater management, and expansion of flood and wildfire prevention and disaster recovery. We want to create community, access, and equity across our programming. Belonging, health, and shared stewardship across our landscape will flourish by cultivating spaces where fresh, healthy food, access to nature, and knowledge become everyday resources for all. We will empower current and future generations to ensure that the benefits of conservation are felt broadly and meaningfully throughout our region. And of course, we want to invest in organizational excellence and leadership. Thurston Conservation District is a leader in conservation, and we will continue to facilitate regional collaboration with strong capacity and financial resources. Strong internal systems and visionary leadership are key to conservation work and will help us achieve the shared goals of a resilient and thriving Thurston County. So what is this new rate proposal? As TJ mentioned, this is a renewal of our system of rates and charges, and we're looking for community feedback on a proposed rate of up to $25 per parcel and 10 cents per acre over a traditional 10-year rate collection period. Most people in Thurston County would pay around 6 cents a day, or roughly $25 a year. And these proposed rates would generate around $2.5 million annually for conservation in our community. How are these rates calculated? Well, to determine these rates, TCD engaged with a public sector financial consultant earlier this year to do this rate study. The rate study looked at the current breadth of our services that we offer and the cost to provide those services to our community. The study then looked at how the services benefit ratepayers, either directly or indirectly. For example, providing a wildfire risk assessment to individual homes is a direct benefit to that home. But reducing the wildfire risk to the entire community and region is an indirect benefit for all. Finally, the study looked at how the cost should be recovered per land use type, per parcel, or per acre. For example, developing a farm plan on an individual farm carries a comparable cost for each farm or parcel that needs a plan developed, while the planting of a riparian habitat on that farm carries a cost per acre for the size of the planting. The study also took into account who might benefit from services provided, such as clean water, endangered species habitat, and locally grown food. Ultimately, the study found that it was not possible under the new state law to recover the costs of all of the programs and services TCD provides to the community. It would cost around $30 per parcel. So therefore, the rates will be adjusted down to the proposed amount of $25 per parcel or up to, and 10 cents per acre, which is allowed under statute. This is still an increase from our historic local rates that were set over 30 years ago, when the cost of doing business was much less than we see today. Rates are still capped in state law at $25 per parcel and cannot be increased further than that. So the impact of rates and charges. Our organization is increasingly positioned as a trusted regional convener, connecting landowners, tribes, schools, cities, county governments, state and federal agencies, nonprofits, producers, volunteers around shared priorities for farms, forests, water, habitat, and climate resilience. Increased help rates will help us do things like offer consistent services that are targeted to meet community need, regardless of granting agency priorities or state and federal budgets. Will help us increase assistance capacity to meet overwhelming demand for technical assistance in youth education. It help us increase access and expand services like the small farm equipment rental program that TJ mentioned, and develop a regional conservation and education center to educate and convene our community. And importantly, do things like lead farmland preservation efforts with our community partners and helping farm businesses stay viable and farmland in production and accessible to the next generation. With increased rates, TCD pledges $1 million a year to save farmland and farms in Thurston County. Over the last decade, TCD has helped Thurston County turn voluntary stewardship into measurable public benefit. With healthier streams, cleaner water, improved shorelines, expanded native plantings and pollinator habitat, wildfire-ready communities, and thousands of students engaged in watershed science. Millions of dollars have been leveraged into local conservation. All of the information provided here for our strategic plan and the rates information, including the study, is available on the back table and on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Good job.
Okay, so we're almost to the point of beginning a hearing. But before we do that, I want to just go over some of the ground rules and some other information. So if you wish to make public comment, sign up on the comment sheet here. And I noted if people in the room have done that, thank you. We'll call the individuals to provide comment in the order listed on the sign up sheet. You'll each have 3 minutes to provide your comment. I will raise my hand when there's 1 minute remaining, and then when there's 3 minutes, I'll ask you to politely ask you to wrap up. After we hear from the folks in the room, then we will hear from individuals who are online in the Zoom. And for those of you who are online in the Zoom that wish to testify, please type into the chat box that you wish to testify, and we will take the testimony online in the order that we see that in the chat. So hopefully that's clear to those of you online. There you go. Tom Crawford did it first. There we go. So when you're speaking, please speak directly to the board. We're asking that you make specific remarks, so that'll be most helpful to us if we have some specific things to respond to. And please state your name clearly before providing comment. We might ask you to some clarifying questions after your testimony. We might not either. It depends, so don't be surprised if we do. We're also accepting written comments in person or mailed here at our office at 582 Tilly Court Southeast, Suite 152, Tumwater, Washington 98501. They could be emailed to publiccomment@thurstoncd.com. And the deadline for public comments on the rates and charges is 4:30 p.m. next Monday, June 22nd. We will be meeting as a board next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. to review the comments that we heard tonight and finalize our recommendations, which will then be forwarded to the county commissioners for their consideration. We also have this thing, as we said, audio recorded, so that will be available on our website at the end of the comment period, so after next Monday. So with that, I'll note too, for those of you in the room, we do have restrooms in here if you need them. This corner of the building over here, this corner of the building over here. So with that, we will open the public hearing for comment, and the first person who has signed up here is Elizabeth McLean. So Elizabeth?
Huge public comment. I just signed up because I was here.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to give public comment. Okay.
There's a checkbox.
There's a box.
Got it. Okay. All right, great. John McLean, did you wish to provide comment?
I would like to say that I appreciate the Conservation District. I've used your services in the past. Tina Wagner's been at my place. And I understand, TJ, that the rate charge is subject to a public vote. And so I'd like to hear more about that and also learn what support you need for the public campaign, because I'm a supporter. So
okay, well, let me
park that question for later.
I think we should clarify that now because it's an important point. The proposal is not subject to a public vote.
Okay.
The next step is for after we take a final action on our proposal, is we give it to the county commissioners. The Thursday County Commissioners make the final decision on whether or not to adopt our proposed system of rates and charges. So it will be in the hands of the commissioners this fall, late summer, fall, sometime in there.
Good. Well, I am happy to pay the modest additional amount.
Okay, thank you. And we will certainly share information about the county commissioners process when that's available.
Cool. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I've got you, Martha. Yeah, okay. Okay, so next up then, Loretta Sepinen.
Yes.
Welcome.
Do I just speak from right here?
Yeah,
Okay.
right from there.
Okay. I'm Loretta Sepinen. I'm a taxpayer and I pay this tax and I benefit from the Thurston Conservation District. I strongly support this increase, taking advantage of this change in state law to provide more funding for the Thurston Conservation District. And my particular interest is the $1 million for farmland preservation. It's been a long time, in fact, almost 30 years now, 1997. Thurston County used conservation futures money, several years of it, bunched it up, and bought easements on almost 1,000 acres in the Swally River Valley farmland. And they paid for easements on that land to make sure that it could not be subdivided into any smaller acreage than 40 acres. That land, you drive by it on the freeway, you see farmland out there, and you can't see the rest of it. But almost all of it that got the easements, it's not developed, all of it, but almost all of it is actively farmed still. And I'm expecting that a good portion of the $1 million a year that you're putting together can be used to replicate that process of landowners voluntarily accepting easements on their land to reduce the development pressure on that land. Of course, that was $2 million 30 years ago, as you said. Things are more expensive. So, but my guess is that in 6 years' time, the Thurston Conservation District could replicate what happened 30 years ago. And that'd be another 1,000 acres of farmland that could be preserved. And you've got a 10-year rate, 10-year time at the rate. So there is time to move in the direction of really making a substantial difference. And one of the other benefits, I think, that doing this will have for our community is to get more people aware of conservation, agricultural conservation easements as a concept for land preservation, and particularly for farmland preservation, although that same concept applies to habitat conservation as well. So I strongly endorse you moving forward with your proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. I think the last person in the room wants to testify is Martha Rosemeyer. So Martha, you have 3 minutes. I'll give you a finger when it's 1 minute left.
Greetings all. Thank you for so much of your service around conservation to Thurston County. So I'm a homeowner and gardener. Also have taught at Evergreen State College in agroecology, and I want to also thank you for providing internship opportunities for students. This has been an incredible part of their education. And with this, so I'm testifying in support of the proposed rate increase, and with this new revenue setting aside $1 million for farmland preservation. I think it could just, as Loretta said, and I'm sorry I wasn't here for your other testimony, but it really has. Thurston Futures did so much, and Conservation Futures, and it's wonderful that this money is available to actually do something similar and to leverage more money, because as you're saying, farmland is costing more and more every year. So farmland preservation is important both for us today and for people in the future, as I'm sure that you all are well aware. Short-sighted to rely on food imports that may not be available when needed. I think you see this with gas. It's much more complicated, but just the basis is having land where we can produce food. This action, the rate increase and the farm money going for farmland preservation, will go a long way to allow Thurston Conservation District to meet its goals of thriving farms, forests, and waterways by 2045. And indeed, I can't imagine how you would approach it without a budget increase, a substantial budget increase. So thanks so much for your work.
Great, thank you, Martha. That takes care of the folks in the room. We'll now shift up to the people online that wish to testify. And first up is Tom Crawford. Hello, Tom.
Hello there, TJ. Glad to be with you virtually here this late afternoon, early evening. Um, as you know, I've been working in the climate change arena for several years now. And so I support, from that perspective, I strongly support this rates and charges proposal, and for a couple of main reasons that I'd like to share tonight. Um, as you know, in 2021, the four major jurisdictions within Thurston County, that's the county government itself and the cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, adopted a climate mitigation plan that calls for deep reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. And those are the bad stuff that we produce that's creating all this climate chaos in our communities and around the world, including extreme heat. And one of the most significant parts of that plan was to enhance habitat and particularly trees and other vegetation in very significant ways in order to draw down carbon dioxide, which is one of the main greenhouse gases. And so this will, I think, really help us do that as you work on enhancing habitat, preserving habitat, perhaps enhancing and expanding habitat, which I assume will include trees and other vegetation. And so that's a really important reason that I support this proposal. And the second reason, I think, has already been alluded to. We are going to need increasingly, as we feel the unavoidable effects of climate change that's already baked in to our atmospheric and climate system. We're going to need local farms because of inevitable interruptions, not only in supply chains that currently supply our food, but the inevitable decrease in the ability of other parts of the country and other parts of the world to produce the food we need. And so for that reason, I strongly support this rate proposal because it will enhance our ability to essentially feed ourselves. And finally, I would hope that I just heard yesterday about Thurston County's proposal to create community forests. And so I would hope that you all would be cooperating and coordinating with them to do that kind of, I think that's a great idea. And to do that kind of thing, I think would be fantastic if the TCD could coordinate with that. All right, thanks. That's my comments, and I support it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crawford. With that, next up is Mike Norden, the manager of the Pacific Conservation District. Hello, Mike.
Hello. I thought I was going to just recognize myself, but thank you. But I do have to say that, yes, Mike Norton, I'm the manager of the Pacific Conservation District. I'm also on the gubernatorial appointed Washington Coast Marine Advisory Council, and I'm on the Noxious Weed Board for Pacific County, and I'm also the chair of the Pacific County Marine Resource Committee, and I'm also on the Willapa Lead Entity. But I'm not here for any of those things. I'm here on my own time. I'm going to mention some things that probably a lot of people don't think of, but probably Sarah would like me to mention. The great thing about rates and charges, one of the most difficult parts of running a CD is that there are no admin grants. Yes, there's overhead and all that stuff, but to be able to run an admin staff, to be able to pay for your manager and your financial staff and the nuts and bolts of a CD, that's more difficult to fund and have money around to do that. Um, I would love to have rates and charges officially, I want to say, but we don't down in Pacific. Another thing that you guys have already mentioned, and I'm not going to elaborate on, but it's your specialty projects that every CD has. Every CD is different. They have different needs and wants for their community. And sometimes those things are actually very often they're difficult to get funded through grants. Education outreach being one of them. There are a number of others. That's another filler that the rates and charges really lands home for a CD. Looking towards the future, planning in the future, that is very difficult to do with grants. Um, and going right along with that is that what a lot of people understand is to write a grant, you don't have money to write grants. Um, yes, you get paid after you get the grant, but there's no there's no real dollars there to do it. So you have to be very creative to do those kind of things. With
Mike, I'm
rates and
sorry to interrupt, but I just want to let you know that there's 1 minute left.
sure. And so you need to cover those things. And on my last minute here, I will say that the political climate when it comes to budgetary on the state is going to be a shortfall, and having rates and charges is that buffer that helps a CD survive that. My last little thing is that if you have any questions at all, I am more than happy to answer them. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Next up, I think, is Rhonda Larson Kramer.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Larson Kramer, and I live at 1814 East Side Street Southeast in Olympia. I support the proposed increase in the Thurston Conservation District's rate and charges assessment, not only because of the specific projects that it will fund that Loretta talked about, but also because it creates a stable local funding source for voluntary conservation. Some of the most successful conservation efforts occur through voluntary agreements with willing landowners. That approach often produces results that are both more durable and less contentious than regulatory approaches alone. This proposal would create a dependable local funding source. Grant opportunities come and go, state and federal priorities change. The proposed assessment would give Thurston County the ability to act with when opportunities arise rather than waiting for outside funding. The amount proposed is modest on a per parcel basis, but it would provide the Conservation District with the long-term capacity to carry out its mission. And for that reason, I support the proposal. Thanks.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thanks for joining us. Is there anyone else that wishes to make public comment online? I see at least a couple, maybe at least one other person there. If you would like to make comment, now is the opportunity. Going once, going twice. Okay, I think that concludes our online testimony, and it concludes our public hearing. So I want to thank you all online and in person for being here this evening for this public hearing. And just to reiterate where it goes from here, we have a deadline of next Monday at 4:30 for additional public comments. So if you know people that you think would want to weigh in on this, they have the opportunity to put that in writing by email or old-fashioned ways, as long as we have it here before 4:30 next Monday. Then our board meets at 6:30 next Wednesday, the 24th, to consider all the comments and testimony we've heard and to finalize our proposal. Once we've done that, we will forward our package and our proposal to the Thurston County Commissioners, and it will be up to the county commissioners to schedule and take action on our proposal before the end of this calendar year. We will certainly put out information as soon as we know it about what the process and the timelines are at Thurston County. So thanks again for coming and for supporting the Conservation District. It's an effort that really involves the whole community, and we're really glad to be partners with all of you. Thank you. And that's it.